Introduction. Livy and History. Titus Livius was born at Patavium in northern Italy, today's Padua, probably in 64 BC, and died there probably in AD 12. His family's communal epitaph may still be seen. He began writing his history from the foundation of the city, Abe Urbe Condita, around 27 BC, just as Rome's latest supreme leader, Augustus, was consolidating his primacy over the city and the empire. Starting with the origins of Rome, he concluded with the year 9 BC in Book 142, an average yearly output of nearly 4 sizable books. Of these, only 35 1 to 10, and 21 to 45 survive, though luckily a collection of epitomes or resumes of nearly all 142 is extant. The history made Livy famous in his own lifetime. There is a story of an admirer from Cadiz in Spain who traveled to Rome simply to see the man of renown, and then went home. Livy was on friendly terms with Augustus, but from the foundation of the city was not a commissioned work or propaganda piece for the new regime. Livy openly wondered whether it would have been worse or better for the Roman people if Julius Caesar had not been born, and accorded enough praise to Caesar's foe Pompey for Augustus to tease him with being a Pompeian, perhaps a punning joke based on his Patavine origin. Books 21 to 30 of From the Foundation comprise our most detailed and exciting ancient account of the Second Punic War, Hannibal's war against Rome, the two warring states. Rome and Carthage were supposedly founded within a few decades of each other, Carthage in 814, Rome in 753. It will help a better understanding of Livy's narrative to summarize the events that led to their rivalry. Rome and Carthage, two republics. Both Rome and Carthage had traditions of Eastern ancestry. Rome descended from the Trojan refugees, Carthage the creation of Dido, a princess of Tyre in Phoenicia, roughly today's Lebanon, fleeing tyranny at home. The favorable geography of both cities made them locally powerful from early times. Rome's strong site on 7 hills beside the Tiber commanded the best routes along the section of Italy's coast and between sea and interior. Carthage, on a diamond-shaped peninsula overlooking the narrowest stretch of the Mediterranean, was not the oldest Phoenician colony, but the best position for Western commerce and communications. By 270, the Romans dominated peninsular Italy. Roughly, its central third had become actual Roman territory, including the wealthy region of Campania, whose cities, notably Capua, enjoyed much local autonomy. Many strategic sites elsewhere were occupied by Latin colonies, cities founded by the Romans and holding a privileged status akin to Roman citizenship. The rest of Italy was a political quilt of states, all bound to Rome by alliance treaties, which left them, like the Latins, self-governing but inflexibly subordinate to her in foreign relationships and military activities. The Romans had also developed significant international trade, as had many maritime Italian cities, from Spain to Greece and including Punic North Africa. They had also undergone a first encounter with an overseas foe, Pyrrhus, king of Epirus, who brought over a professional Greek army in 280 to aid the Greek city of Tarentum against them. With Greek military science at its peak, Pyrrhus inflicted the expected defeats on Roman armies, only to find himself no better off. When the Romans finally drove him out of Italy and forced Tarentum into their alliance system, It was a portent of the future. The Carthaginians built their hegemony mainly by sea, from the profits of trade, and then from dependent territories. From the mid-6th century they controlled the western quarter of Sicily, sharing the island with numerous, often squabbling Greek city-states like Syracuse, Agrigentum, and Messana. They also occupied the fertile lowlands of Sardinia and places in Corsica, and maintained close contacts with the old Phoenician colonies on the coast of Spain, notably Gades. They tried to enforce a monopoly on the trade in tin that came from beyond the Straits of Gibraltar, and sometimes regulated other dealings through agreements with trade partners, and 2nd century Greek historian Polybius quotes the text of 2 early treaties with Rome, struck in 509 and 348. Carthage also imposed control over her fertile North African hinterland, including other old Phoenician cities like Utica, which were treated as privileged allies. By contrast, the surrounding North African populations were taxed and conscripted as subjects. 3rd century Carthage and Rome shared many general political features. After early monarchies, both had developed as republics. Their systems included male-only citizens' assemblies which enacted laws and elected magistrates. See glossary. A senate made up of leading men, including ex-magistrates, and the magistrates themselves who had fixed tenures of office. In both republics, it was the Senate and magistrates who between them decided most questions, with the citizens' ratification usually a formality. Closer comparisons are difficult, for details of politics at Carthage are few, but at Rome some leading families enjoyed prominence, thanks to recurrent electoral success for generations, like those of the Hannibalic Wars heroes Fabius, Marcellus, and Scipio. But there was room for men from less distinguished backgrounds to attain rank and influence too. For instance, Flaminius, the energetic though brash consul whose career ended in disaster at Lake Trasimene in 217, but whose son in turn would one day be consul, and Cato, a newcomer from Tusculum near Rome, consul in 195, censor, proponent in old age of Carthage's destruction, founder of Latin history, writing, and much else. With only 2 consuls a year, very few reached that ultimate height, but as the detailed notices of Livy and other authorities show, Roman voters at elections were capable both of loyalty to generations of the same families and of choosing virtual unknowns. There were enough magistracies, particularly at the lower levels, to allow this range of selection. The citizen body, in turn, meeting in various formal assemblies, usually followed the Senate's lead but occasionally enacted otherwise. The result was a vigorous and versatile political life of blended conservatism and innovation. The Punic Republic, too, had well-established political families, but they are much harder to trace. With much of the city's wealth based on the risks of maritime trading, and with wealth, according to Aristotle, writing around 330, no less important than birth for political success, it was a challenge for competitive families to maintain the standing won by successful ancestors. Hamilcar Barca's supposed descent from a brother of Queen Dido is no guide to whether his family had enjoyed recent eminence. All the same, one family or clan, the Magonids, had enjoyed not only eminence but practical dominance over the state starting around 550, with Mago a successful general, and lasting until 396, while another family, thanks to the leader termed Hano the Great, managed similar leadership from about 350 to 310. Aristotle regarded Carthage as mostly a well-governed state, and it is the only non-Greek city to be discussed in his politics. The chief magistrates were two annual suffetes, whose role was chiefly to consult the Senate of Carthage on matters of government. For its wars, though the Republic elected generals with wide open-ended tenure, the Senate of Carthage, in turn, bore the engaging title of the Mighty Ones, and had a select inner council of 30. But how the council and the Mighty Ones themselves were recruited is unknown. No doubt money talked again. As for the assembly of citizens, Polybius rather disapprovingly remarks that it had more real power than the citizen body at Rome, but what that means in practical terms is opaque. We find the Senate at Carthage in practice anyway, as the organ still authorizing war and ratifying peace during Hannibal's war. Polybius' comment may be a censorious Greek oligarch's exaggeration. Unlike Rome, whose foreign relations until 280 were almost entirely with other Italian states, Carthage had to deal from early on with overseas powers, and especially the Greek cities of Sicily, because of her own territorial interests there. A long series of wars, invariably ended in a stalemated return to the status quo, was fought with Sicilian Greek coalitions, usually led by Syracuse. During the greatest such war, from 317 to 306, the Syracusan leader Agathocles turned the tables at one desperate stage of invading Punic Africa, 310 to 307, winning a series of successes, and though finally forced to retire to Sicily, weakening the Carthaginians enough to secure peace soon after. 30 years later, Pyrrhus of Epirus, frustrated in his Roman war, took up the Sicilian Greek cause to overrun most of the Punic West. But the struggle ended as before. Carthage's next Sicilian war, however, was a serious shock. The First Punic War. In 264, Rome and Carthage suddenly went to war. The circumstances were odd. Both had stepped in to protect Messana, a Sicilian city now occupied by renegade Italian mercenaries, the Mamertines, from falling into the grip of the resurgent Syracuse. Yet the would-be protectors soon found themselves in a confrontation. The Carthaginians' concern over possible Roman intrusion into Sicily led them into the unprecedented alliance with Syracuse. But the Syracusan king, Hiero II, quickly made his peace with the intruders, accepting second-rank status for his city in return for a long and prosperous reign until 215. Rome and Carthage, by contrast, remained at war for nearly a quarter of a century, 264 to 241. The war ebbed and flowed, largely fought in western Sicily, but with a number of major naval operations beyond. The Romans not only launched a grand fleet, 261, but surprised the world by defeating the Carthaginians at sea. They eventually invaded Africa under the consul Regulus, who forced the Carthaginians to sue for peace. But when talks broke down, he, like Agathocles, suffered a disastrous reverse, 256 to 255. The Romans then lost several fleets between 255 and 249, along with tens of thousands of Roman and allied lives through storms of enemy action. The Carthaginians, in their turn, eventually found themselves deprived of all their Sicilian province, save the fortress ports of Lilybaeum, modern Marsala, and Drepana, Trapani, Their defense of these was helped from 247 on by the agile guerrilla warfare carried on by a new commanding general, Hamilcar, nicknamed Barca, Lightning. But after a new Roman fleet was launched by public subscription in 242, the consul Lutatius Catullus crushed its clumsily handled Punic counterpart at the Agates island off Drepana, March 241. Hamilcar was instructed to seek terms, and after some difficult negotiations, the war ended with Carthage abandoning Sicily and agreeing to pay a large indemnity. The Romans became effective masters of all Sicily, save Syracuse's small kingdom, but did little with the island. The Carthaginians, meanwhile, unable or unwilling to pay their professional troops what they owed them, were put in mortal danger by the mutiny of these troops, followed by a general revolt of the oppressed North African population. This savage, truceless war, 241 to 238, was finally won under Hamilcar Barca's leadership and with help from Rome and Syracuse. But just after it ended, the Romans abruptly annexed Sardinia and extracted another large indemnity from Carthage, perhaps as an afterthought from the peace of 241, or because a Carthage revived by the indomitable Hamilcar looked as if it would threaten the hard-won Roman supremacy over Sicily. That done, however, they paid Carthage little notice for a dozen years.